I'm the Hornet King, and I remove incredible and insane wasp nests. Whether their nests are underground, in a house, in a tree, or even down a well, I'm the person crazy enough to extract them, and I do so with my trusty vacuum. In this video, I'll be heading into a client's attic to remove a massive European Hornet nest, tearing it apart bit by bit, and feeding it to my animals. Check it out. Hey everyone, welcome to the Hornet King channel. So this is a client that was seeing hornets flying around the inside of their house. Anytime I go to somebody's house and they really don't know where the wasps are coming from, I have to investigate. So the first thing I did was go outside and just look around the windows, doors, roof line, all that stuff. And right behind an arborvitae bush, right on the corner of their house, I could see activity flying in behind the soffit area. So once I go inside, I said, okay, this nest is in your attic. Second, I turned on the light, and they were just doing what they're doing here. They're just flying around and obviously flying to the lights. Batter's up. Clink. So once I located where the nest was, got all my gear set up here, and getting ready to start vacuuming up as many of the adults that are crawling around on the surface of the nest, around the nest, under the nest, whatever. So I just vacuum up here and just try to get a few of them that are like obviously exposed and going to attack me while I get things set up. I don't want them setting off an alarm pheromone and then start swarming out of this thing. A lot of what you'll see on the outside of the nest are actually males. So this colony was already producing males and queens, so they're going to start mating and hunkering down for the winter time. This was kind of like late summer, early fall, so it's about the time of the year when they would start doing this and getting ready to mate and leave and hunker down for winter time to hibernate and then start a new colony next year. Something you'll notice here where this insulation is kind of like dipped into between the rafter space, it's got a big puddle of sludge on it, and all that sludge is waste material from the colony itself. And European hornets have a very distinct sewagey smell, like an odor to them. So had this nest been just hovering over drywall, the waste would have been landing on the drywall and saturating it, and then the client would be noticing in the ceiling of the room below it, they would be noticing a stain on the drywall and that stench. Unfortunately for the homeowner, this nest got a lot bigger because they weren't able to be alerted to anything other than when the wasps started leaving the nest. So that's why they were seeing activity in their house, because queens and males were leaving the nest to go find a new place to live, and they were venturing into the actual living space down below. So had that sewage been laying on the drywall instead of on that insulation, they would have noticed this nest a lot sooner. So I'm just taking my time vacuuming up as much of the adults as I can. I'm not trying to bump the nest because I really don't want a bunch of activity swarming out. I want to vacuum up as many into the vacuum as I can. I don't want to have to walk around the inside of this attic and suck up ones that are crawling on the roof or ones that are crawling around my light or whatever. I did have to do that anyway just because that's just the nature of it. Some are going to fly past the nozzle. Some are going to fly to me or to the light. It is what it is. It's not a big deal, but if I can avoid 150 of them doing that and just deal with the 15 to 20 that I had to suck up, I'm totally cool with that. So just taking my time and vacuuming up and just take off a little bit of the envelope at little bits of time, and that way I'm not disturbing the nest too drastically all at one shot. So you can see there's pretty good clusters and clumps of the hornets in between the layers of comb right underneath the envelope. So when I start exposing them, it's not disturbing them enough to make them swarm out. Now, you can see sometimes I bump it and they start running around really crazy. And the ones that do that usually are the males and the queens. There didn't seem to be too many guards at this point, so it must have been pretty well on a decline for the end of the season, though there was still a lot of larvae inside this nest. This thing was pretty well packed with larvae still. So even though it was towards the end of the season, it was obviously starting to decline because the workers weren't hatching as much. It must have been a lot more queens that were hatching out of this nest at this point. The difference between workers and queens is that queens can reproduce and workers can't. Workers can lay eggs that will become males, but the workers cannot mate with any other male themselves to reproduce a female or a queen. But the queens themselves have the reproductive parts, and they can mate with a male, and then they can pretty much start a whole new colony all by themselves, just like this one was started. So this is all the sludge, and obviously some envelope that landed in it. It really looked like dog poop, like it was just like mushy diarrhea. It was just really gross, and it smelled really bad too. So now I got most of the envelope off, then I can start focusing on trying to crack that thing off the wall. Remember what I said about the fluid not on the drywall? Well, it was just starting to leak onto the drywall. I mean, it's pretty well saturated through that insulation anyway, so it was obviously starting to run at that point. And at this point, the client would have started noticing as that fluid started leaking into the drywall. So it's good that I was there then, because then I could move that insulation off the drywall so it didn't seep through. Taking my handy-dandy pry bar and prying the different layers of comb apart and getting this thing to break off so that way I can pull it down very, very gently, because I don't want these things to swarm. There's still a bunch of them inside there. So I gently pull it down, and you can see it. You give them a lot of opportunity to crawl back into between the layers of comb. Some fly around, but not a big deal. So I just vacuum up a lot of the ones up here. And you can see a lot of those are queens and males. Males have the longer black antenna that kind of like stretch around to the side like ram horns, and the queens have the longer, thicker, more robust abdomens. Pulling it down, now you can see it's like cockroaches when it hits light, man. They just start scattering and trying to run in between the layers of comb. And I'm not worried about them staying in between the layers of comb, because I'm going to take this nest home anyway and tear it apart and vacuum up pretty much any that I can. Any ones that fly away is no big deal, but so it doesn't really matter that they stay in between the layers of comb. It's actually just I want to vacuum them up so they don't just fly off the nest right away and into the attic. So unbeknownst to me, there was still a little bit more comb up between this rafter here. So I had to reach up inside there and try to get it out of there, but there were still a lot of adults on it, as you can see. I tried to set my phone up here, and it ended up just falling down, and I didn't notice it while I was vacuuming. It is really, really hard to shoot these videos while doing this job at the exact same time. I'm in a hot attic, I'm wearing a respirator, I have a vacuum running, so it's noisy, and it's really, really hard to tell what shots you're getting. So I'm actually pretty impressed with how this went, even though this wasn't super stressful, but you really just kind of taking a gamble that you're not going to get stung. So now that I got the nest home, just cracked the Rubbermaid bin open. You can see there's still a few ready to fly out. Most of those are queens, just because the workers aren't that quick to leave the nest. The workers pretty much stick with the nest and will guard it if some threat comes to it, but they're not going to just leave once the lid is taken off. So just take my time vacuuming up the ones that are obvious on the outside of the nest, and then I'll take my crowbar and I'll pry the top layer of comb off, and then keep vacuuming up any of the adults that present themselves. Any of the ones that are leaving, they're just going to fly away. If they were workers, they would swarm around me and attack me, but they're not. They're just going to fly. They're going to fly away and either try to start a new colony some other time around my property, or they'll die. Queen, I wanted to catch her. Basically what's flying off right now are queens and males. I'm not really that concerned. This isn't a game of trying to get every single adult. This is a game of trying to get the adults that are going to sting my animals when I try to feed these nests to them. So just take my time and just get as many as I can, and just get all of them off the comb is the main thing. I love the sounds of when these nests get cracked open when I do that. I try to get as much of the good audio as I can. I like hearing that crunching sound when the nests come apart. It's like very, very satisfying to listen to. That's why I turn off the vacuum and then do the pry bar. So that way I can hear that noise, and that way I can share that noise with you guys. So it's not that I'm turning off the vacuum and then wasting all these wasps flying away and missing all of them just for the sake of cracking it open, and that's a dumb process, blah, blah, blah. It's actually on purpose, so that way you guys can hear the sounds. Here's the queen. Not the queen, a queen.
Hi, Giblet. Hi, Giblet. Oh, that's a nice Giblet. She's a good girl. Hi, Daisy. Hey, Turkey. Come here, Turkey. Come here, Turkey. Hi, Every. Hey, Squirrely Squirps. There's a larva, Squirrely Squirrel. That yummy larva, Squirrely Squirrel. Ooh, you popped it, Squirrely Squirrel. You popped the larva, Squirrely Squirrel. You better watch that. She's not gonna put up with that. She's a bully squirrel. You don't mess with a bully squirrel. That's not Miss Emily. She's not afraid of you.